Good afternoon, distinguished guests, panelists, and colleagues. Thank you, Bursa Malaysia, for inviting us to be working together for this forum. We are now in Plenary 5, unlocking nature-based solution projects, opportunities through the ASEAN national frameworks. We do acknowledge, I think from very morning today, we listened that the ASEAN member states across ASEAN talks about not just tech-based as the climate solutions, but we also talk about nature-based solution or NBS as critical pillar to collectively respond towards the climate change, which offer multiple wins. Nature-based solution supports not just carbon sequestrations, biodiversity protections, ecosystem restorations, and sustainable livelihood. Yet, unlocking full potential of NBS require more than good intentions. It demands robust framework, clear regulations, and credible pathway that can channel finance towards high-integrity projects, especially those that benefit states government, local communities, that are the real custodians of our forests. So in recent years, we see there's encouraging progress from across ASEAN member states that efforts towards nature-based solutions has been strengthening and from the overall scheme of climate actions. For instance, Indonesia's Sistem Registry Negara, Sistem Registry Nasional, SRN, is pioneering the national registry that links climate action with domestic and international markets. We do listen, among the progress is signing a mutual recognition agreement from Indonesia with other independent standards. Secondly, we also hear the progress from Thailand Verified Emission Reduction Scheme, or TEVA, that is actually run by Thailand JHA organization, that is strengthening transparency and certifications. And we hear this morning as well about Thailand pioneering Article 6 with Switzerland, Singapore, and Japan. Singapore, congratulations, has taken a bold steps, actually spearheading the announcement of the first carbon pricing mechanism in the market through carbon tax and actively sourcing for high integrity credits. We hear just now 10 implementation agreement has been signed to date. And in here, Malaysia, we talk about potential developing carbon pricing instrument with the announcement by the Prime Minister this week about carbon tax to be fully in operation 2026 and setting the momentums with the launching of Bursa carbon exchange last 3 years. We had here a lot of progress in Malaysia, including the introduction of carbon rule by Sarawak state government, the issuance of first nature-based solution from Kuamut in Sabah, as well as what we are working in MFF, developing the national crediting system forest carbon offsets, which is now at the pilot stage. So more to come, the national carbon market policy, as well as the most anticipated bill, the Malaysia Climate Change Bill, is being drafted and expected to be tabled first quarter next year. So with that, indeed, we feel that this is very, very exciting. We have heard the perspective from different actors, from the buyer, from the market regulator. But today, this afternoon, I want to zoom into the ASEAN national frameworks and discussing how the national crediting systems, perhaps together with our independent standards that is readily being operated and spearheading the market, how we could essentially build more credible MBS, bridging policy for market needs, and ultimately mobilizing capital at scale. So panelists, to start this discussion and momentum, I would like to invite each of you to introduce yourself and your organizations and perhaps a bit zoom in, how do you involve in nature-based solutions, and perhaps a bit of sharing how different actors in the market can actually navigate across the evolving regulatory and market environment across ASEAN. So maybe I start first with Dr. Mita.
Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mita Ratnajuwita. I'm the Director of Inventory of Greenhouse Gases in Ministry of Environment, Republic of Indonesia. I'm involved in the carbon climate change and to prepare the national registry system. So I have to prepare the system to be more robust and to be ready when the MRI with the international scheme will be implemented in Indonesia. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mita. Short introductions. We go deeper later. Perhaps women.
Hello. Yeah, hi everyone. So thank you first, Puan Su, and then MFF as well for inviting Singapore into your esteemed sort of forum. Every year we come, every year we learn something new, and we share something new with you as well. Yeah, so thank you for that. I'm Wee Min, so I'm with the National Environment Agency of Singapore. We're actually the regulator that looks into carbon credits purchase for the Singapore government, as well as our carbon tax liable facilities. Yeah, and so we hear a lot about high integrity, high quality, and indeed that's what we look at as well as the regulator for carbon credits. Environment integrity, the 7 principles that are inside our sort of international carbon credit framework. And yeah, we have signed 10 IAs, so this is a whole of government sort of effort. Not easy to get to where we are today, but I think we're just starting because with each IA, it's a different set of challenges, but also an opportunity to really, sort of do by learning and doing at the same time. So we're excited. We have one IA that has applications ongoing now. We are hoping for the other 9 to also start the application process so that we can move from the conceptual into the real projects that would generate the carbon credits. Yeah.
Indeed, it is a long process. I think before you enter into IA, you started with MOUs and then further negotiate into IAs and then now looking into realizations of projects on the ground. Thanks for sharing, Women. Dr. Lokesh.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lokesh Chandra Dubey. I act as Head of Standards Development and Management at Gold Standard. To introduce Gold Standard is to invoke the vision of Gold Standard, which is integrity in climate action delivers impact for nature and people. So everything from integrity to nature to people is at the core of Gold Standard. And this discussion is very much pertinent to this vision. On what Gold Standard does in nature-based solutions or nature-based activities, we have both instruments, for example, the carbon credits and impact statements that talk to nature-based solutions. We have several sectors already recognized and codified, for example, forestry, agriculture, blue carbon, and freshwater ecosystems for generation of carbon credits. And there are also impact statements and nature-based frameworks for NBS labeling, which is under pilot currently. And we hope to take that up after 2 years pilot is complete as a full-scale product. And also we have nature responsibilities framework that is a discussion paper which is under development to regulate on the demand side of it. So we have both aspects of demand side and supply side oriented to nature and to deliver integrity impacts.
Yeah. Maybe to also add, your commitment towards socials, certain percentage from the carbon financing needs to be determined to be channeled to the PLCs as part of the requirement of gold standards, as part of the commitment towards not just nature, but also the people inside it.
Yeah, as I said, people is also one of the core elements of the vision. And gold standard, I'm proud to say that gold standard is the standard which started with sustainable development as its core priority and looks at carbon finance or carbon credits as vehicle to deliver sustainable development goals. And hence the requirement to distribute the benefits with people is also enshrined in our requirements and as part of our safeguarding requirements as part of this. And we are also working on more explicit mechanisms to share benefit. Of course, not making anything compulsive that cannot be implemented on ground, but of course, that's in process.
Thank you, Dr. Lokesh. Winsim, over to you.
Thanks, Ponsu. Winsim here from Vera as the regional representative for Asia and Pacifics. And in a nutshell, Vera as a standard setters, we develop methodologies. So if you are new to this carbon market, well, you can't generate carbon credits without the use of what we call robust, high-integrity methodologies. And in the MBS space, in particular, we have developed quite a number of MBS methodologies. And very relevant to this region, we are developing methodologies for avoiding plant deforestations, tropical peatlands, and another one would be conservation and restorations of seaweed beds. At the same time, I think you heard from Amy from ICVCM early this morning, we intend to align our methodologies and submit them for assessment by ICVCM against their high benchmark of core carbon principles. And thirdly, if I can add very quickly, thus far we have heard feedbacks that, gosh, Vera is slow, there are bottlenecks. So if I can share a quick initiative that we recently announced with Hedera Guardians, where if you submitting methodologies that had been digitalized, you can actually download codes from the Hedera Guardians and then use it to automate the creations of, for example, PDD, the project design documents, without having to write documents yourself. And then from that tool, you can also check what other information is needed that should expedite project developments. But I think I share enough and then pass it back to Ponsu.
Yeah. But maybe just to add to your, not just VCS for carbon, but you also couple your service into CCB, acknowledging the fact that forest is not just about carbon sequestration. Perhaps adding any addition to that?
Yes, I guess this is a similarity that we share with gold standards. We also have emphasis on sustainable developments. But our form, we call it the climate, communities, and biodiversity. Slightly different phrasing, but I think the essence is similar, where if your carbon projects, if it's bringing benefits to the communities and biodiversity, that can also be verified as the core benefits of the projects. But that is, of course, very only relevant to nature-based projects. Yeah. For another tech-based sectors, then we talk about sustainable development goals as per the UN list.
Thank you, Insim. Carrie, over to you.
Thanks, Ponsu, and thanks very much, MFF, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Carrie Heng. I represent New Forest. For those of you who don't know New Forest, we are a nature-based real asset manager. We manage about $8 billion US of assets globally, and that's across emerging markets and also developed markets. So we were founded about 20 years ago, and our mandate is really to invest into sustainable forestry, agriculture, processing, wood processing, and also nature-based carbon projects. And that is both in the compliance and in the voluntary carbon market. So we have been established here in Southeast Asia since 2008. It is an important region for us, and we are actively investing into carbon projects in the voluntary, or you call it independent, carbon market space. I think maybe just to address a little bit from an investor perspective, right? How do we manage an evolving market environment, which is sort of the initial question that you posted, Ponsu. It is challenging, to be honest, from an investor perspective, given a lot of developments in the market. You know, as investors, we look for stability and consistency. And I must say, at this point, consistency is lacking in the region. Every country in the region is at different stage of development and have different frameworks and processes in place, right? So of course, consistency is easier said than done. And it is one key barrier to scaling investments at the moment. But I think, you know, based on what the previous panel was saying, the ACCF is, you know, something that is very much welcome from an investor perspective. Hopefully, the common framework that will be adopted will drive a lot more investments into the region. Because when there is lack of consistency and stability, as investors, what do? We look at what are the risk mitigation strategies, right? And one of which is obvious. We would then diversify across geographies, right, in the region, and that's something that we're doing at the moment. We also adopt a blended finance structure. So, for example, we have grant facilities that we use as part of our due diligence process, and we're using one called Restoration Seed Capital Facility funded by EU countries. And what that does is that it enables us to, you know, for every dollar that is invested by our investors can be stretched further, because the amount of money that we get from this grant facility can then be used to screen more projects and potentially reduce debt deal costs to the extent that these projects don't meet our investment criteria or risk profile. So it is unfortunate, but blended finance mechanism is still very much needed in this region or in this space, but hopefully that is something that will change in the time to come.
Thank you, Carrie. Yes, indeed. We hear from different perspectives, but I think most importantly, when we talk about building nature-based solutions, it is really never easy. And to add to complexity of it, now ASEAN member states coming up with crediting systems that are different from one another, might be similar, but essentially on the basis of sovereignty. And I would really want to bring this discussion a bit deeper from the different group of panelists. Perhaps I start with Indonesia and Singapore. You see, having a national systems is perceived causing fragmentations, some to a certain extent, like what Carrie has mentioned, inconsistencies. And perhaps I would like to really hear from Dr. Mita and Wee Min in the context from Indonesia and Singapore. Both of you are the leaders among developing national carbon pricings, not just crediting frameworks, but as well the carbon pricing instrument in terms of tax. How such system like Indonesia and Singapore carbon tax can actually be designed to enhance nature-based integrity, perhaps through the specifications, through dual recognition or mutual recognitions that we have heard. Maybe before you come, you're sharing your experience, I would like to also share Malaysia Forest Fund, while building the FCO, at the onset, we are really thinking not to build from ground zero. Really look forward on how we could collaboratively work with different standard owners as well as accreditation bodies or market determinant to ensure that what we are building is ready for market immediately. I think we will not be able to have the capacity like what Vera and Gold Standard have to basically gone through a long process of developing a very complicated and comprehensive system. Perhaps I pass this question first to Wee Min to share your insight.
Yeah, Puan Su, I absolutely agree with the point on it, not having to start from ground zero. That's certainly so, because there has been good work done in the industry already, you know, the voluntary market. And these guys right next to us, they came right from voluntary market and then they've established themselves. So definitely you can get there, just how long is it going to take? And actually for nations like Malaysia, I think what you have is the local context. Sometimes the sort of internationally renowned standards, they may have a lot on their plate, let's say, right? And then different sort of methodology and then project types that they are reviewing, and they may not actually have time to come and work with you directly, and then why not get a start? So I think that's where MFF came from. And then from your localized context, know that what do you need as the key ingredients for the credits that are going to be sort of generated from Malaysia. I think that's a right step, but always probably for someone like Singapore who's a buyer, we're also trying to see whether the synergies are to be had. And I think indeed that's what's happening, right? MFF is actually working with Vera to develop the methodology. And I had that conversation with Amy as well last night. Amy is so well known, ICBCM, it's a plug for her. So, but we agreed on something. So something like Singapore being a buyer or any other buyer country, we look at the methodologies. I mean, if they are sound, integrity is okay. Of course, we'll just accept the methodologies as is. But if in a case where the methodologies are new or they are still evolving and they require some kind of additional safeguards, in order for us to say, yes, we'll agree with the methodology, but we do need some additional safeguards. Actually, a neater way, and I agree with this, a neater way is perhaps the renowned kind of reputed meta standards who are looking at these sort of standards as well as the methodologies. They can do the collation of all the feedback, and then the sort of methodology is upgraded within the standard itself, rather than different kind of sort of national bias trying to come out with our own slightly nuanced, kind of requirement. I think there is a place for that in the interim. I think if we want to keep things moving, then we shouldn't be waiting for each other too much. So I think there's a place for that. Just that there's probably a neater way for us to work as well, where if a methodology is either new and still evolving, the conversations are had such that, what really are the key, gaps in the sort of environmental integrity of the methodology can then be discussed and then agreed upon to be built directly into the methodology at the next revision. I guess the consensus for that is then we put our minds to prioritizing which methodologies, are worth the effort. I think in the end, let's face it, the resources are finite. Yeah. For MFF, for us, my team is a tiny little team, so the resources are finite, yeah. And we do have to prioritize, and from our perspective, actually, we see it quite simply in, where is the supply? Where's the supply of credits? Where's the demand? The industry that wants to buy that level quality of credits. And then the environmental integrity. Are the methodologies in itself, are they quite sound? You just maybe need to tweak them a little bit, or, you could accept them as is if the risk is not too high. Yeah, and then just learn and do at the same time. So I think we take that kind of a frame, but as I said, I think it's good if like-minded stakeholders in the ecosystem start to work more closely together and then move in the same direction for very specific kind of maybe project types, as well as the actual credits. You have off-takers right from the start. Then it's a more holistic way to kind of cut through the chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, but I must also applaud the fact that Singapore are very open to also acknowledge national crediting system. I believe one on the IA with Thailand, you look into project certifying by TIVA. I believe to come to that conclusions also require you to really understand how different crediting system works. Perhaps I pass the question to Dr. Mita. Can I have your view on how national framework can actually enhance the design of high integrity nature-based projects?
Okay, yes. I think I agree with you that it's not easy to develop this, right? Lesson learned from Indonesia, we design and keep improving our national carbon crediting framework as a regulated scheme to support high integrity carbon credit, particularly for nature-based solution or NBS project. Usually we Indonesia goes with the compliance market, but it's not going so well in the years behind. But now we open for the VCM, the voluntary credit market. We've already have the MRA with the VERA, with the gold standard, GCC, and something else. So we generate eligibility standard, ensuring additionality and permanence, strengthening national MRV system. That is more important, and prioritizing social and environmental safeguard. Especially this is for the REDD plus and facilitating regional cooperation. This high integrity credit must be environmentally robust, like what we already developed, the national registry system. We already developed the SRN robust, and also provide benefit to local community and be transparently governed as mandated by Article 13 of the Paris Agreement. So the first of all, we have to develop standard and governance. We establish a common framework. We embrace global benchmark and also develop national specific methodologies like the presenter before. So the methodologies is very important. We have three scheme that is the one that be determined by our deputy, and also the standard, the national standard, and also we recognize the UNFCCC methodologies. And then we also strengthening the integrity mechanism. We ensure the robust MRV system. A harmonized and transparent MRV system is very essential. That is to have the high integrity carbon. And also we have developed our national registry system as web-based technology, as transparent platform for acknowledge and tracking purpose. We've already submitted this SRN to the UNFCCC. And then we require also the strong additionality and permanence, and also manage if there is a leakage. We build robust methodologies to address the issue of the leakage and to manage it. And then we also maximizing the co-benefit and equity, especially to prioritize the social and environmental safeguard. This morning, I've attended the launching of the book according the social, environmental, and also legal safeguard to have the high integrity carbon. So it's very important, especially for the nature-based solution. So, and then we also have to involve stakeholder meaningfully. So, especially the local community, so there is no one left behind. And then we also facilitating the market functional to promote interoperability and transparency. We do have the two system in our office. So we have the Science Smart Robust. It is for the inventory of greenhouse gases, and this is linkage with the national registry system to measure the emission reduction from the activities. And also we have a link with national climate goal. We support the NDC. So even there is a carbon market, we prioritize that we have to fulfill the commitment, the national commitment about the NDC. So that's what we do in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mita, for laying down the core component of the SRN. I believe what is important, I think, what I am very much interested with SRN is it is linked to the NDC, linked to the policy. Hence, it is not just about issuing carbon credits, but also making sure that it is aligned to the national interest. But I think I want to bring this discussion to the independent standards. I would like to really hear you and sharing with the audience how the independent standards can essentially collaborate and complement the national systems. Perhaps sharing from your experience. Is that you, Dr. Lokesh?
This is a great question, and people often ask if there are several national mechanisms and registries and standards or national frameworks coming up, what would be the role of independent standards? I would say a role is very much complementary as asked in the question. So both complement each other. The core role of international standards could be on methodology development, ensuring that there is integrity in the process, in the requirements, in the accounting frameworks, delivering credits which are best, internationally best possible aligned with the Paris Agreement, the global goal, and also with the best practices, for example, ICCM, core carbon principles, and so on. While the role of national frameworks could be more on not really reinventing the wheel, but relying on the thread of knowledge and the creation of requirements, frameworks that have flown from years with the independent standards, working more on legislations, legal frameworks that help legitimizing the demand that can be created in-house within countries, and also nuancing with those methodologies, maybe contextualizing those methodologies with additional components that may be required for implementation on ground, because most of the independent standards have methodologies which are globally applicable. Some of those may be regionally applicable or nationally applicable, but most of them are globally applicable. And countries may have their own national circumstances, capabilities, and capacities. And in light of that, national frameworks might give input to that, add some extra requirements, not diluting the actual requirement of the methodology or the standard, but bringing it more contextualized to their purpose and need. And that's how I think the cooperation can best be demonstrated. The mutual recognition route is one of the examples, like gold standard, as we have been hearing from morning, and also other independent standards are recognized with national frameworks for carbon taxes and also internal carbon markets. Another route could be that the standards also have the necessary know-how which is translated into local needs. A good example is our rice methane methodology, which is a globally applicable methodology, but it has different components. One component is part of the methodology itself. It is example, best practice example of how to develop national emission factor is part of the methodology with the example of Spain. And when we prepared this methodology, we also created series of supporting documents. For example, we have pre-filled PDD, we have the model Excel calculation spreadsheet, and also translation into Vietnamese that is going to help the participants who are in Vietnam for implementation. So these are some of the examples. There could be several routes how these can complement. We have to kind of emphasize that the role of independent standards is more on bringing in the international context and the best practices, while the role of governments or national frameworks could be more working on the local context, maybe, for example, improving the accuracy of national inventory estimates, or creating new national emission factors or local emission factors that have very high accuracy, low uncertainty, and that feeds into the application of methodologies developed by international crediting mechanisms. So those could be mechanisms by which there is a good kind of like those can be complementing to each other. And also one important message that I wanted to send with this in response to your question is that we often see markets as voluntary carbon market and compliance carbon market. As it was in the first session also, it was stated that there is not really a voluntary or compliance carbon market anymore. The line has almost blurred. Demand is coming from compliance market for the voluntary credits, and also vice versa. So it is more like the origin of credits do not really matter now. The purpose of credit or where it is going to be used, that matters. And that's how we are also working on the not only the supply side but also demand side of it. And that's how national national frameworks can decide on use cases on which different credits generated from different national crediting mechanisms would be used for different purposes.
Yeah, I like the word demand driven, but I must also add some of your point. I see you are also working to explore on dual labeling, where if feasible, gold standards will also work on the potential of creating dual labeling. I believe you are working with TIVA right now. We have signed early this year with gold standards to explore the same route. Perhaps that could also fast track the bringing the national crediting system to the market.
Yes, we are working on the premium tier program gold standard labeling, so it will be a dual certification. And also with other countries, we are in process of developing such frameworks. And the gold standard labeling of CDM CERs were very successful model that we had seen in the past. And I believe we can take that model forward with the national frameworks as well.
Thank you. Winsim, I see you're already excited to share perhaps the perspective of Vera.
Yes. Well, first of all, Dr. Galakesh has shared some of my points, so I will go to some other points. Let me begin by saying that Vera missions is to advance climate actions and sustainable development. That said, it means that our missions aligns with many national frameworks. Many national governments also want the same thing. So we have the same goal. So in essence, we are open and we want to explore collaborations. But I think the key question here is, what are the national priorities that the governments want? I'm going to steal a bit thunder from Dr. Mitra to talk about the mutual recognitions with the Indonesia's Ministry of Environment. And with Indonesia's, the key word that we agree on, it took us long to negotiate the mutual recognition agreement. But the key word that we agree on is registry interoperability, connectivities, and of course, streamlined process. We want processes that are friendly to the markets. And all that with a corner on environmental integrity. So let me give more detailed examples. In the technical guidance that we will publish soon, we'll talk about a dual registration track for projects in Indonesia. Now, this is because the governments want oversight, wants to know what projects are there in Indonesia, and later on to track the issuance of credits. And of course, at the same time, we're also thinking about a joint labeling for the credits. There are issues under this MRA that we have with Indonesia's government. So, in essence, if I can quickly sum it up, is you have national registry, you have national standards, but still we can work together. And in this instance, Indonesians can make use of our infrastructure in terms of registry for the processes and procedures, and of course, methodologies. Now, this is on second point, which is something new, but our CEO Mandy had mentioned, I think a couple months ago, if a government wants to have more control and governance, but it wants to utilize VCS methodology, but the certifications sit with the government, then maybe licensing is the other pathway to consider. Because we understand that governments want full, better governance and control. We respect that. And we want to explore that further and to see how that can be operationalized. And coming back, circle a bit back to the point where Wimin mentioned about the local context. Can then we look at what kind of modifications that we can make to accommodate to what we call the local context, to make it suitable for the local project proponents. Third point, which I think really crucial in the current markets, is that we are fixing the supply part. I think we are doing a fairly good job, I would say, with a lot of projects and pipeline projects under the CCP approved methodologies. The next problem that I think we need to solve, which Dr. Lokesh alluded to, is demand. Without a demand, without a strong price, this market will not take off. So I'll pause there and pass it back to you.
Yeah, perhaps the coming compliance market in all the Asian member states would also drive demand from there. So Kerry is coming from a different perspective, not scheme owner, not standard owner. You are the investors. I met you last 2 months in Bangkok, where you have shared with me you're working on one mega project in Thailand, certified by Premium Tiver. Perhaps share a bit your experience, perhaps your view, how different crediting mechanism can actually entice investors like you, and particularly to commit long term for such nature-based solutions. We understand is long term and high commitment.
Yeah, thanks, Wansu. I mean, I mentioned about consistency earlier, right? But I think to us as investors, there are 3 other C's as ingredients to scale investments, and that's the first one is really clarity, right? Clear and transparent national framework is very important for investor confidence, because we need to know how regulations are applied, what the approval processes look like, what's the timeline to credit issuance, right? Because lack of clarity creates uncertainty and delays. So using the Thai project that you mentioned as an example, it's a 3-year journey so far. In the first year, when we did our feasibility study, we spent 1 year and we did feasibility study in 2 stages. At that point in time, the expectation was that the Verra methodology would be applied to the project. And with initial consultation with government, we were of the common understanding that that would be the methodology that would be applied. However, as we embarked on the PDD development process, there was a change in position. We were asked to then apply the national framework, and that's the Premium Tiver framework, and that is fine, right? We want to support what the national framework is, and we believe that the national framework will be elevated to international standards over time. But there was a problem, and the problem was that there was no methodology that would apply to our project under Premium Tiver framework, right? And this is the peatland rewetting methodology. So what does that mean for us as investors, right? We're stuck where we have to apply this national framework, but there's no methodology. So then we have to go and develop our own methodology, and of course not from scratch, because we should be using what's already out there, and then adapting it to local context, right? But that means it's an extra step that takes time and costs delay, and investors don't like that, right? So it's an example of how lack of clarity in process really is a challenge at this point in time in the market. And the second C is credibility, right? So with many standards and methodologies in the market, and credibility at the moment is really assessed through alignment with international standards. As investors, what we want to see is, okay, is this going to be using a standard that is ICVCM approved? Is it going to be CORSIA eligible? Will the standards have ICREO certification? So all these are things that we look for because they are needed at the moment to ensure project integrity and manage reputational risk as well. So that's the second C. And I think the last C, which is last but not least, a very important one from our perspective, is commercial viability, right? And commercial viability is a function of revenue and cost, right? And revenue is driven by credibility, right? Why? Because credibility affects marketability of the project, as we all know. And then on the cost side, right, all those unnecessary delays and uncertainty in the regulations has a cost issue as well, right? As investors, we understand, yes, project development takes time, but it also takes money. And how much more time will we need in order to get the project to issuance? That's always a challenge, and it's a key challenge at the moment. So a project may be technically very sound, meet all the quality criteria and meet all the standards, but will struggle to scale if it's not financially viable. So I'll say the 3C that I would add is credibility, clarity, and really commercial viability.
Yeah, maybe learning from your case, perhaps mutual recognitions of methodology, really the immediate answer, rather than building methodology before you embark the projects, perhaps could fast track.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I think don't create something new is what I would say. Apply as much as possible common framework. Yes, it might need to be localized, but I think applying as much as possible common framework will really help to scale projects because then we don't have to understand something new every time.
Yeah. So we still have time, actually quite an ample time for audience, questions from the audience. Any questions? Perhaps this, are we okay, audience? So if I don't have any question from the audience, perhaps I want to just pull out some further questions to you, any of you. Of course, with the evolving market, we talk about building nature-based as credible and investable. Coming back to the fundamental, perhaps each of you could highlight what's the key to essentially build trust for the market. If you're talking about trust, how do we build trust from the market itself? And perhaps a bit explanation how we can also include community benefits and how such different system could actually acknowledge the community element within the systems. Any takers? Yeah, Lokesh.
Okay. This is again a great question, particularly from the regional perspective in ASEAN region and also the sector that we are dealing with here. I would say first is ensuring that integrity is not compromised with. An example of that is aligning our accounting methodologies and standards with the global goal, with the Paris Agreement at the methodology level and also at the project level. Projects which are already registered should also align with that by subscribing to the new methodologies or revised methodologies that would come up as a result of this alignment. That is one thing. And second thing is on timely realization of revenue. If it is a smallholder project, for example, if it is a smallholder project which is a nature-based project being implemented in some rural area of one of our ASEAN countries, what would really the households or the farmers would look for? They would look for real returns within time, some benefit that they can realize. These benefits could be in monetary terms or in other terms, but should not be something which is notional in nature. So something which is tangible, which they can feel, which they can really sense, and which can be attributable correctly to the activity. and delivered on time. That is very much important. It is seen that in CDM afforestation, reforestation projects were implemented on ground, but carbon revenue could not reach to the participating farmers on time. And these being a small scale projects implemented by low income communities, families decide not to really continue with the project. They divert land use to other purposes. And that is the crash of entire faith in the carbon market. Other developers or other regions, other communities, they will not be interested in those projects then. So it is very important that we reinstate that faith by allowing them to have upfront finance that can be realized well within time, so that they have this motivation of keeping the change that they are doing, maybe agroforestry, maybe soil carbon, whatever they are doing. All those are behavior linked projects, and it is important to keep them with a lot of benefits realized on time with the help of several financial instruments. Could be blended finance or other means of finance, could be putting two different types of projects together using two different methodologies for one single project, generating removals and reduction, reporting them separately within a project, so that there is a de-risking of the kind of activity also. So all those kind of activities must be thought at the feasibility stage itself, while project is going to be intervention is going to be designed. So those, and also at the end of the day, I started with integrity. I'll again close with the fact that at the end of the day, we should realize that all carbon which is reduced or removed in any part of the world must be fungible with the carbon which is reduced or removed at the other part of the world. So at the end of the day, what we see is a supermarket which is linked to each other, and there are several smaller parts of it, moving pieces, which are linked to each other. Yeah.
Thank you, Lokesh. Any other panelists?
Can I?
Yeah, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
building trust and integrity, I think it's very, very important, because once we have a fraud project, something like that, we will have the untrust of the all of the people that involved in the carbon market. So yes, the trust and integrity is more important, and that's why we have to have the high integrity credits. We have to focus on the credibility. We have to avoiding the greenwashing, the fraud, something like that, and that we can achieve with the methodology, the good methodology. And about the methodology, we already have mutual recognition with FERA, gold standard, and so on. And we can use the methodology that FERA, gold standard, and everything, the market we have, that we already have the MRA. So the methodology, we have no problem, but the thing is how to ensure that the project use the methodology with the proper right. So we have to have the monitoring system, how to apply the verification, something like that. So that's the one. And then we have to have the transparency of the data. So we already have the national registry, which is combine all of the activity concerning the climate change. We can do the reporting using the SRN, and we can also have to have the marketplace for the carbon pricing, and we will have the interoperability with the international market like FERA, like gold standard. We already finished the guidance for the gold standard, and then we will go through with the other scheme. So I think that's it, the important thing, how to make it integrity. So what we have to do that is to protect the system, the mechanism to have the high integrity carbon credit. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mita. I think time is already, we're running out of times. Allow me to conclude some of the discussion today. Thank you, panelists. We have heard today some of the key points as takeaway. Yes, national framework can be very instrumental to scale nature-based solutions. They provide clarity, consistency, and credibility to help both developer and investors to move confidence, especially considering government recognitions and its modality and process. But at the same time, not to forget that collaboration between national and international systems could facilitate the market entrance. Alignments of methodologies, transparency, infrastructure for verifications, and perhaps could further unlock greater market access and attract global finance. I think with that, audience, give the hands to our panelists to thanking them.